Dear learners of Standard 8, it's a very good morning and welcome back to my science class. I had discussed with you about the different types of food elements from chapter 13, Food and Nutrition, from your book. Today I am going to discuss about the new one, food elements. That is what? That food elements generates heat and energy in our body. So we can say this is the energy producing ingredients, that is fat or lipids. And you know, food is composed of a number of chemical elements, and these chemical elements are called the food nutrients. And when we eat different types of food, we get the different types of food elements from our diet, and diet is an important risk factor also in our coronary heart disease. So food related risk factors include obesity, high blood pressure, uncontrolled diabetics, and a diet high in saturated fat. So we have to control the food which contain the saturated fat. So today I am going to discuss about the fat or the lipid. So this is also called the energy producing ingredients. So dear learner, follow. What are lipids? Lipids are organic compounds that are fatty acids or derivatives of fatty acids, which are insoluble in water but soluble in organic solvents, that is natural oil, steroid, waxes, etc. So what have you learned from here? Lipids are organic compounds that contains the fatty acids. So these fatty acids are insoluble in water. So fatty substance or fatty acids are insoluble in water but soluble in organic solvents, that is, say for example, the natural oil, steroid and waxes. So lipids are a family of organic compounds that composed of fats and oils. These molecules yield high energy and are responsible for different functions within the human body. So fat generates the heat and energy in our body, and we know the carbohydrate based food also produce the energy. If we take the carbohydrate based foods, different types of carbohydrates, our body will get energy. But lipids or fats, this generates heat and energy. So now you will see the lipid structure. So lipids are the polymers of fatty acids that contain a long non-polar hydrocarbon chain with a small polar region containing the oxygen. So follow here, lipids are the polymers of fatty acids that contain a long non-polar hydrocarbon chain with a small polar region containing oxygen. So the lipid structure is explained in this diagram. This is the lipid can be classified into two parts, saturated fat and unsaturated fatty acids. Later on I will discuss. So here lipids are organic compounds that contain hydrogen, carbon and oxygen atoms, which forms the framework for the structure and function of living cells. So dear learner, in lipids we are getting the carbon, hydrogen and oxygen are found more in quantity. And how this lipids food generates the heat? As carbon has more combustion quality, the molecules of lipid substance release more heat energy. So lipid is a compound made up of fatty acid and glycerol. So next one, follow. Lipids are organic compounds that contain hydrogen, carbon and oxygen atoms, which forms the framework for the structure and function of living cell. Now follow. This lipid is a compound made up of fatty acid and glycerol. So this lipid, where the fatty substance having digested turn into fatty acid and glycerol, and here this fat digestion process follow. In stomach, this gastric lipase, a lipase is the name of one enzyme. This gastric lipase hydrolyzes only a small amount of fat. So when this in presence of this lipase enzyme, this enzyme helps to convert the fat to fat droplets and fat, this pancreatic lipase insists the fat to to convert into diglyceride and monoglyceride, and next the step last we get from the fatty acid and glycerol. So this fatty acid and glycerol get absorbed in the body through which gland? Lymph gland. This lymph gland situated in the belly of intestine. So dear learner, the fatty substance having digested turn into fatty acid and glycerol. Then this fatty acid and glycerol, this fatty acid and glycerol this get absorbed in the body through lymph gland situated in the belly of intestine. So how are lipids digested? The enzyme lipase breaks down fats into fatty acid and glycerol, which is facilitated by bile in the liver. What are lipids made up of? Lipids are made up of a glycerol molecule attached to 3 fatty acid molecules. Such a lipid is called the triglyceride. So glycerol is a simple polyol compound. So what is glycerol? This glycerol is a simple polyol compound. It is a colorless, odorless, viscous liquid that is sweet tasting and non-toxic. What is fatty acid? In chemistry, particularly in biochemistry, a fatty acid is a carboxylic acid with a long aliphatic chain which is either saturated or unsaturated. So here follow this. Previously I told you that is the fatty acid and glycerol get absorbed in the body through the lymph gland. This lymph gland situated where? In the belly of small intestine. Belly of small intestine. So what is gland? Follow. These are the numerous. There are numerous glands in our whole body. So what is gland? An organ in the human or animal body which secretes particular chemical substances for use in the body or for discharge into the surroundings. And here this fatty lymph gland helps to get absorbed the fat into the body situated, which is situated in belly of intestine. Mainly this fatty acid is formed in liver, but the capacity of liver to produce fatty acid is very limited. For this reason, but what happened? These fatty acids, on the other hand, there are some fatty acids essential for the body. For this reason, lipids or fatty acids can be divided into 2 parts. These lipids can be divided into 2 parts, that is fatty acids and glycerides. These fatty acids divided again into 2 parts, that is saturated and unsaturated. So we will know these functions only in this section and in this class, that is saturated and unsaturated fatty acid. So mainly the saturated fatty acid, it is the animal based, and the unsaturated, this is the plant based fatty acid, plant origin. So the usefulness of it cannot be measured by the quantity of fats present in food. The food that contains more unsaturated fatty acids is more useful. So the foods which contain the unsaturated fatty acid is more useful. For example, soybean oil, sunflower oil, corn oil, sesame oil, etc. And the food made with these oils fall under the group of best fatty food. So best fatty foods, the example can be mayonnaise, salad dressing, kashundi, wild pickles, etc. But the saturated in this part, saturated part, the foods that contain more saturated fatty acids are called fat enriched food. For example, the meat, cheese, butter, dalda, chocolate, nut, etc. So we can say unsaturated fats are generally healthier than saturated fat. And in lipids, 20 types of fatty acids are found. According to the nutrition science, out of the daily required energy for the body, 20% to 30% energy is obtained from the fat. Now we will see the difference between the saturated fat and the unsaturated fat. Saturated fat, what? Meats, butter, dairy products, I told you, that is the cheese, dalda, chocolate, nuts, etc. From here we can collect the saturated fat, whereas unsaturated fat, the vegetable oil. soybean oil, sunflower oil, corn oil, sesame oil, etc. Then this is solid at room temperature but unsaturated fat liquid at room temperature. Saturated increased levels of bad cholesterol, low density lipoprotein. So this is bad carry the saturated fat carry the bad cholesterol but increased levels of good cholesterol, that is high density lipoprotein. Then low density lipoprotein clogs the arteries, that is the make the hindrance in our heart arteries. But the unsaturated fat high density lipoprotein that is, or the short form HDL, grabs and the low density lipoprotein and escorts it to the liver. So where the low density lipoprotein is broken down and eventually removed from the body. So from here we can easily understand that the unsaturated fats are generally healthier than the saturated fat. So dear learners, here we should include those fatty foods in our daily food menu which can supply essential fatty acids and can dissolve vitamins in the solution. So next, if food lacks in fatty substance, what will happen? Deficiency of fat soluble vitamins occur in the body. So this will result in disease due to the deficiency of vitamin. So skin will get dry and rough, that will ruin the beauty of the body. The children will suffer from eczema. What is eczema? That is dermatitis, that is the follow here is the baby, the rash, reddish color. So is the inflammation of the skin typically characterized by itchiness and the redness and a rash. An elderly person lost the resistance against skin disease. So role of fats in our body. Fats play several major roles in our body. Some of the important roles of fats are mentioned below, that is fats in the correct amounts are necessary for the proper functioning of our body. Many fat soluble vitamins need to be associated with fats in order to be effectively absorbed by the body. They also provide insulation of the body and they are an efficient way to store energy for longer periods in the body. So we can say the functions of the fats in our body, that storing energy and this insulating and protecting our body, then regulating and signaling different parts of the body and avoiding absorption and increasing bioavailability. Then it's the providing essential fatty acids in our body. So dear learners, you have to read these 3 organic compounds of the food element, that is protein, carbohydrate and lipids, and in my next lecture I will discuss about the vitamins, minerals and water. Today up to this, thank you all.